What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Dorm Squad Sports, a college sports podcast focused on Alabama athletics. I'm Dakota, and we got a great show for you all this week. We're going to keep on breaking down, every Alabama game. We're on Game 2, New Mexico State. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the new NCAA ruling that they're considering, what that might affect for college sports video games. But before I get any of that, I actually have some really big news. So most of y'all probably know that I'm a college basketball writer for Busting Brackets, and I've been doing that for almost a year now. But besides doing that, I've just started working with Saturday Blitz, a college football website. It is there's a great group of guys there. They're putting out a bunch of good content, and it's 365 days a year, all college football. So make sure y'all go subscribe to them on Twitter. Make sure you're looking up stuff, because I've been there for about a couple weeks now, and I've put out at least 10 articles about Alabama stuff specifically, but I wrote a little bit about Florida, some college video game stuff, just any college sports, and it's 365. So for all of y'all that are looking for any way to listen to college sports or college football specifically, make sure y'all go check Saturday Blitz out. But anyway, so we're going to go ahead and break down New Mexico State. Of course, this is the second game and the second episode of this series where we're breaking down every game on Alabama's schedule. And let's just preview their offense first. All right, first up, so their quarterback that I'm assuming they're going to be rolling next year is Josh Adkins. He only had 13 passing touchdowns and 9 interceptions last year, threw for a little bit over 2,500 yards. So he's not, a deep threat. He's not a prolific passer like some. And he can be a sneaky runner, but he's not a run-first quarterback. He's not a Jalen Hurts type or a Lamar Jackson where he's a runner who can also throw the ball some. He tries to throw the ball. He's just not the best at it. And if he needs to scramble, he'll be good. And if you keep his passes behind the line of scrimmage or, before the first down marker, so about, let's say anywhere from 0 to 20 yards or so, he's pretty good. He can, make some good passes. They do a lot of screen stuff. They get creative with their offense, and he can make those passes and then, rely on his receivers or a running back to make the play for him. He just struggles in the deep balls, and that's mostly where his interceptions come from. And sometimes, we've seen it before where you have a quarterback who has too much confidence that doesn't really fit the build with how he plays. So he tries to make that deep pass, and he just, completely, it's a tough throw to make. And when you throw it off, there's an interception there. That's where most of his interceptions, I watched a couple of his games online before I did this. That's where most of the interceptions in those games came from. And the other person you look at for this offense, Jason Huntley, he is their star on offense. He's a running back, but he's mostly an average running back. He's more of an all-purpose back. And I'm going to tell you, he's, in terms of, this level of football, maybe he couldn't, produce this in the SEC, but at this level, he's really special. And, he's not as talented as Christian McCaffrey is, but he plays like Christian McCaffrey. So he can run it. He can catch out of the backfield. If you need to line him up for a slot and, a 5-receiver set, he can do some of that. He does some work on special teams. Pretty much what they do is they get the ball in his hands and say, make a play. So he ran for 505 yards last year. It's not a lot, but he also caught for 529. So that shows his, dual threat ability. And, he's not the only running back in the offense. So, if he's on the field, look for, some screens, look for him to go out in the slot and, throw a small pass and then try to get the big run off of it. So, and if you're looking for more of a traditional back, look for Christian Gibson. He's their backup. He only caught 8 passes, but he got 96 carries. And he's okay, but he's not the best when it's, red zone targets and you're trying to get that last yard in the end zone. He didn't get a lot of touchdowns this year. He's mostly just, a way to get a stable backfield where you have, different types of players, similar to when we had Kenyon Drake and Derrick Henry. I would say that he's more talented, but I would say Jason Huntley is the Kenyon Drake type, where he's, going out and the receiver trying to catch the ball. And, Christian Gibson, even though he's not as talented as Jason Huntley, he's a backup. He's the Derrick Henry who, runs between the tackles, tries to make a man miss, and does something from a handoff or a toss and not a pass. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about their scheme. So this is where I think Alabama might struggle, because New Mexico State, all their concepts are, relatively simple, but, things like screens and, nothing too, they're not a Lincoln Riley offense by any stretch, but they're going to slowly work their way down the field. And that's where Alabama's struggled in these games before, where it's, not a game that's really easy to get up for. It's probably going to be an 11 o'clock game in Tuscaloosa. It's going to be really hot. People aren't going to be, really excited for it. And they're just going to, get those 3 to 4 yard gains and slowly work their way down the field until they find something to get that big yardage play. And I mean, we've had struggles in games like that before, especially against opponents that we're truly better than. And I'm kind of worried about that in this game, just because we're gonna have a lot of young guys, and this will be some of their first examples playing in a situation like this in Alabama. Not in terms of winning the game, but in terms of asserting their dominance. We've struggled doing that before. So hopefully that doesn't happen, but it's definitely something we need to keep out for. And like I said, so it's mostly going to be like things behind the line of scrimmage, sweeps and screens and just simple concepts where you're trying to get, one blocker and make a man miss and then get the big gain. But I think it'll be important for our corners to lock up on them and make sure that they don't get those, 5 yard passes, time and time again. That's something that, Savion Smith struggled with last year in a few games. If we can avoid things like that, of course, Smith isn't on the team anymore, but whoever fills in for him, if we can avoid plays like that, I think it'll be very important. All right. Now, talking about their defense, they're not great. I'm not going to try to, obviously you don't want to sleep on any team, but I'm not going to lie to you. This team isn't fantastic on defense. But one thing they do well is they force turnovers. They had 7 interceptions last year, and they forced 10 fumbles. Obviously, these were against, inferior opponents to Alabama. But the fact that that's something that they do very well, something you need to keep up with. I'm not expecting to have, any fumbles or interceptions in this game. But, one play can, keep them in it for the first half as opposed to, scoring 3 straight touchdowns and getting them out of it early. And that's really what you want to show when you assert your dominance in a game like this. One name to keep up with from their defense is Cedric Wilcox II. He led them last year with 7 sacks. 7 sacks isn't a whole lot if you're going to be leading the team. But, I mean, it's for a team like this, it's, considered quality. He's just the main guy we need to keep up with defensively. He only averaged about a tackle and a half a game, however, so it's clear that all he is in there for is to get to the quarterback. If his role increases this year, I'd be surprised, but it'll be interesting to see if he can do it. He's a senior this year, so I'm sure they would try to expand his role in terms of playing time, but I don't know if they're going to tell him to do much more besides hey, go get that quarterback. That's your main priority. And of course, we're going to be throwing the ball a lot, I'm assuming, at least early. So we'll see if he's going to be able to get through some of our new linemen, because we're switching. We have 2 new offensive linemen. I'm trying to think. Yeah, we have 2 new offensive linemen in terms of not started before, and we have 3 people who played somewhere else. Including those 2 that are new. So with Alex Leatherwood switching from right guard to left tackle, that's a new position. It's his natural position, but it's new for him. And then we have a new center, and then we have a new right guard to replace Alex Leatherwood switching to tackle. So just some stuff you need to keep up with on that right side. All right. And let's see. Okay. So just a few keys to the game. So I think, like I said before, secondary has to stay aggressive in this game. If you give them a yard, they'll try to get 3, and then they'll just keep doing that down the field. And that's how they get their points. I think if we can, get a tackle early, if we can, get them behind the line of scrimmage, make it a 2nd and 13, 2nd and 14, I think they're really going to struggle. And because they can't throw the ball deep, they just have to, get a little bit every single time and not have anything negative. That's how they play their game. They're really consistent. They don't have, the big plays. So if you can get a sack and force them into that big passing play, there's a good chance you're going to get an interception. And that starts with our secondary, being up and aggressive with the wide receivers. Another person we need to keep up with is Dylan Moses. I think he's going to be really important because he'll be assigned to Jason Huntley a lot. And, of course, linebackers are a lot of that small yardage stuff, whether it's a run and you're, stepping into a gap, or if it's a running back that goes out in the flat. I'm assuming Dylan Moses is going to be on Jason Huntley some if he's in the backfield. And, maybe not when he's in the slot, but definitely in the backfield. And I think it'll be a good chance for Moses to show off his closeout speed, because that's really one of the strengths of Dylan's game is the ability to, close a distance really fast and, make a tackle where it looks like he's going to get the first down and then all of a sudden he's in his tracks. Dylan Moses is very good at that. So I think this will be a chance to show it against a quality back. And all in all, I think, obviously avoid the big mental errors, try to stay healthy. I'm more interested, like I said in the first episode, I want to see when Talia plays, because I think if he plays in the first game and the second game, then that's really clear that we're not going to give him a red shirt. And if they let Paul Tyson play, then I think that they're saying, okay, we're going to put both of these guys in, down the course of the season, and hopefully we can redshirt both of them, but we'll at least redshirt one of them. But if he plays in, Duke and this game in the first two games as a backup, I think that's saying, look, you are the future of the team, and we're not going to worry about a red shirt, because, that's what happened with Tua in his freshman season. He was the clear backup. He came in a lot of games. Of course, they didn't have the red shirt rule back then, but it was, look, you are our guy, and we're not really worried about a red shirt because we want to get you on the field. And, just some other places where you want to see some depth, I think we're going to get plenty of time in the running back core. So, Chadarius Townsend, Trey Sanders, I think will be very important. And also linebackers, we really need to, provide depth at the linebacker position. So this will be a good chance to get some more guys in, especially against a team that tries to, exploit linebackers in that, short yardage situation. So maybe we can have something happen there. It'll be really interesting to see what happens. Okay, so that's enough about New Mexico State. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about, this is going to be a pretty short episode. I'm going to talk a little bit about this new NCAA ruling that might be coming. So the NCAA is putting out pretty much a group to research and make a decision, or get a report together on whether or not athletes should be allowed to get paid for their likeness. They're not going to get paid to play the sport, but this would pretty much allow them to get paid for being college athletes, even if it's not through the university. I think this is going to be a great thing. I think it's something the NCAA really needs to worry about, because you have in the NFL, you're going to have teams like the XFL, or like programs that are trying to get talent and, bring them in. And in the NBA, if they're going to get rid of the one and done era, and if they're going to, try to, enforce the G League and, make that better, give high school athletes a better option than college, then you're going to have to incentivize it, because you can't just say, oh, well, we're going to give you an education if college players know they're only going to stay for 1 year and their coaches aren't as, are just as good in the G League as they are in college. You have to incentivize it, because everyone else can pay. And if you're not getting paid legally, then there's not really as much of an incentive, especially for college basketball. And then with college football, with the XFL coming up, if that becomes the development league, then you really are going to be wondering, like, how are we going to keep these guys in? And they got to get paid somehow. I understand the NCAA not wanting to pay them, because that would open up a lot of questions as to, do we pay all college athletes the same? Do we pay college football players the same as we pay gymnastics people? Like, there's so many, questions that you're scared to answer and that could, ruffle a lot of feathers. But if you do it this way, if you just let them get paid for their likeness, if someone wants to sell a jersey that's, an Alabama jersey that's licensed through the NCAA with a number 13 on it and the name Tunga Valoa on the back, then Tua gets paid for it. It's just the free market. It's how, how economics works. It's how you, get people paid for how good they are. It's just common sense. I don't know why it's not legal already. So, if someone wants to, buy an autograph of Jalen Hurts, then they get paid. Jalen Hurts would get paid to sign autographs. It's, maybe they allow even sponsorships. Of course, that's going to open up a new can of worms. But, if there's some cross-country person and people want to pay him to go do something, he gets paid for it. It's just how it works. It's a free market. It's, pretty much, getting out of the way and letting this happen. And most importantly, for me at least, it would open up the potential for EA Sports, NCAA football to come back, and maybe even NCAA basketball, but people don't care as much about that as NCAA football. But I think this is something that we've missed out on for a long time, and I'm really looking forward to the opportunity of this coming back. I think it would take, this result is supposed to be due in October, so I don't think, we're definitely not going to see it for this season, and I don't think we'd be able to see it for the next season unless they have everything set in place and they just need the okay to do it, because there's a lot of stuff that's going to go down in terms of how much people get paid, how much they're allowed to pay people, organizing contracts, figuring out how much you can pay a cover athlete. There's so many questions that have to be answered. So maybe not this year or the next year, but the year after, I think it's definitely a possibility. And I think it's still a possibility for next year. This year, not as much, because I think there's too much going to be going down. But it's something to keep up for. Of course, I think some things that you would need to add to a college football game are legendary teams to make up for all these teams that we've lost. I mean, you never got to play as Lamar Jackson or as Kyler Murray or, Jalen Hurts at Alabama. You have all these teams that were so good and players who were going to be amazing as college athletes, and you never got to play as them. So I think you need to bring back legendary teams, or at least legendary players. Maybe do recruiting classes where you can customize them, or customize rosters. Something where you have more control in it, like you would in a Madden, where even if they don't provide you what you need, you can, make up some stuff here and there and make up for it on your own time. So I think it's definitely something that people need to look out for, because I think it's going to happen. Sooner or later, I think we're going to have another college football game. I think it's just a matter of is this the thing that's going to bring it? And I'm hoping it does. I think everyone's hoping it does. And it has a really good chance to. So it's something you'll need to keep out for. One question, if you're still listening, put in an iTunes review. If you don't mind making a 5-star iTunes review and telling us who you wish you could have played as. So I think the last team was the first time we didn't have Eddie Lacy. So would you want to play as Blake Sims, Jalen Hurts, obviously Tua, Jerry Jeudy? You lost out on Quinnen Williams. Even if it's a different team, if you want to play as Baker Mayfield, whoever you want, put that in your iTunes review. Tell us which players you really wish you could have played out. And I think that's going to wrap it up. Make sure y'all, if you could please subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening to it. Keep up, follow us on Twitter. Y'all have a happy week, and roll tide.